When the 80s turned into the 90s, the biggest pop culture story at the time was the success of Tim Burton's Batman. Not since Superman in the late 70s did major studios believe in the profitability of comic book films, and with Batman, all of the major studios began to develop whatever intellectual properties they had in their arsenal. Universal Pictures didn't own very much, especially nothing that matched the dark tone of Batman, which is what audiences were looking for at the time. Then along came Sam Raimi, who was known in 1989 for directing Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and would go on to direct the first Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire. Raimi had been trying for years to get Warner Brothers to let him make his version of Batman, but it never went anywhere. Then he tried to get the rights to The Shadow, a crime-fighting vigilante originally from the 1930s, and that never went anywhere either, although Alec Baldwin later starred in another film version of that particular character. So Raimi, wanting to make a comic book-like movie, did the only thing he could. He created his own character, wrote his own script, and modeled it after the comic book genre, and hoped that a studio would pick it up. Raimi even enlisted the help of his friends Joel and Ethan Coen to help polish his script, and this is how 1990's Darkman first came to be. Raimi knew that he wanted something classic, dark, and relatable to audiences, even though Darkman was an unknown persona. To achieve his vision, he relied heavily on taking pieces of the Batman and the Shadow and combined them with the iconic Universal monsters of the 30s and 40s, such as the Invisible Man, the Mummy, and Frankenstein. And when you see Darkman for the first time on screen, you immediately recognize the Mummy wrappings, the Shadow's coat and hat, the Batcave-type lair with computer and surveillance equipment, the Frankenstein rage, the Invisible Man's moan. Darkman is an amalgamation of a lot of these vintage pieces stitched together, and you know what? It worked. So before we get too far down the rabbit hole, let's take a quick look at the plot and the characters that make up this sometimes overlooked and sometimes forgotten Sam Raimi classic. Darkman stars Liam Neeson as Dr. Peyton Westlake in his first role that ever got him public notice and started his career in action films, and Frances McDormand, future Oscar winner for Best Actress, as Julie Hastings, also in one of her first major roles. However, before we get to them, the film opens up with the magnificent introduction to one of our main villains, Durant, played by Larry Drake. Raimi chose him for his primary psychopath because he brought an understated calmness to his violence. And the choice surprised a lot of people because at the time, Drake was a well-known television actor. It was surprising because his most well-known role, a supporting part on the procedural drama L.A. Law as Benny Stolowitz, was as a middle-aged office aide with Down syndrome. That's right, in the late 80s, the advice of Sergeant Lincoln Osiris was not heeded.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
Larry Drake went full retard in L.A. Law, which again is why his choice as this murderous nutjob was an unexpected turn for the actor. Not only is Durant portrayed as ruthless, but he's also given the trait of collecting the fingers of his victims, using a cigar trimmer to sever the digits of those he kills. We are then introduced to Dr. Peyton Westlake and his corporate attorney girlfriend, Julie Hastings. Westlake is very much in love with Julie, and although the feeling is mutual, Julie is hesitant to commit to his marriage proposals. Now, Julie is an attorney for a real estate firm. In her possession is a memorandum that was supposed to be private that points to illegal activities on the part of the company in a proposed development deal that would net millions and reshape the entire urban landscape. Julie plans on confronting her boss about it, whom she suspects nothing of, believing he is an honest man. And as Julie and Peyton get ready for their day, Julie leaves behind the memorandum to keep it safe. Now, although Julie begins her day at work confronting CEO Louis Struck about the memorandum she has in her possession, Struck plays dumb about the revelations, and this does not totally dissuade Julie, but she naively believes her boss. We then see Peyton working in his lab with his assistant, which happens to be above the apartment he and Julie share. They are experimenting and researching artificial skin that can be used to conceal burn victim scars or even replace whole pieces of the body. However, the experiment has hit a roadblock. The artificial cells are only able to remain stable for 99 minutes. After that, they melt away. On their next attempt, there is a power outage, and surprisingly, the cells remain stable after 99 minutes, revealing that it is exposure to light that causes the artificial skin to break down. When the light comes back on, the lab is invaded by Durant and his crew, who are looking for Julie's evidence of corruption. Peyton is ferociously beaten for information he does not have, and his lab assistant is killed. Unsatisfied with Peyton's ignorance, the thugs turn on him again, electrocuting him and drowning him in a vat of boiling chemicals. Peyton sustains catastrophic burns to his face and hands. Meanwhile, Durant's men find a memorandum they are looking for and leave, but not before rigging the entire building to explode. As Julie arrives home, she is just in time to witness their apartment engulfed in a fiery blast, and we see the body of Dr. Peyton Westlake ejected through the air and into the harbor. Believing Peyton is dead, there's a funeral for him, but he is not dead. He is fished out of the water and brought to a trauma center and believed to be just another unfortunate homeless man. He is operated on with a new technique that cuts the nerves that send pain signals to the brain, allowing him to remain alive and sedate. It is then explained that this procedure will augment other emotions and hormones in the body, including anger and rage, which will also elevate Peyton's strength. However, his entire body is bandaged and wrapped, and he's not expected to recover from his injuries anytime soon, and probably not at all. As the doctors walk away, Peyton does wake up, and his memories of the attack generate enough testosterone for him to break free and disappear. Still bandaged from head to toe and wearing a black trench coat he found in the garbage, Peyton tries to reconnect with Julie, but cannot speak properly, and Julie runs frightened from him. Broken and beginning to lose his humanity, Peyton returns to his burnt-out lab and salvages whatever equipment he can. While there, he decides to remove his bandages from his face and sees for the first time his reflection. It is a devastating moment for the doctor and one that only fuels his obsession with finding a way to make his artificial skin work. Knowing that he cannot be seen in public anymore, Peyton then takes refuge in an abandoned steel mill and sets up his new lab. As he performs his experiments, Peyton also keeps tabs on Julie, spying on her as she attends a company party. Sad to see that she's dancing with another man, her boss, that sadness is soon replaced with a thirst for vengeance when he sees some of the men who attacked him. He wastes no time and eliminates the first member of Durant's group that night. He then sets up surveillance on the others and devises a plan to use his artificial skin to create duplicates of their faces, giving him the ability to impersonate the gang and disrupt their operations, all the while turning them all against each other. But remember, whatever plan he has, it must succeed within 99 minutes or else his cover will be blown and he will be discovered. For a while, his ruse works, until Peyton decides to reconnect with Julie. He tells Julie the partial truth, and Julie, still unaware that Strux is behind everything, tells her boss. Strux then puts both Julie and Peyton in danger, telling Durant that he needs to finish the job. They track Julie to Peyton's hidden lair. After kidnapping Julie, they attack Peyton, but after a prolonged battle, Peyton is able to come out on top, even managing to kill Durant. But Strux still has Julie. Peyton goes after her, and he and Strux commence their showdown atop the skeletal structure of an unfinished skyscraper. In the end, Peyton is able to defeat Strux and rescue Julie. However, there is no happy ending, as Peyton realizes that he's now something different, a monster, something Julie could never fully love again. Despite her pleas for him to stay, Peyton disappears into the crowd, fully embracing his new persona, that of Darkman. Thus ends Sam Raimi's first foray into the realm of the comic book genre. Now almost forgotten by fans of 90s cinema, Darkman represents a continued shift in public taste and studio attitudes at the time. 90s cinema was known for being dark, for not always having a happy ending attached to it. Was Darkman a box office success? Yes and no. It debuted #1 at the box office, something Raimi credits the Universal marketing department for, but only made $33 million to be the year's 36th highest grossing film. Its failure to be the next Batman is blamed a lot on the film's tumultuous post-production. The original cut from Raimi was 2.5 hours long. It received the lowest test scores of any Universal film ever made. A lot of that dissatisfaction was pointed at a lack of a happy ending for Peyton and Julie, but Raimi would not have it any other way. The editing process was arduous, so much so that multiple editors quit. And when Raimi went on vacation, a new editor was brought in and cut the film to the 90-minute offering we have today. One is left to wonder, is there a better film that remained on the cutting room floor? Now, despite all the production drama, there are many things to still appreciate about this film. The first is the dedication that Liam Neeson and Frances McDormand gave to their performances. These are not Oscar-winning performances by any means, but to make sure that the proper emotions were being emitted on screen, and Peyton's descent into madness was front and center, the two actors used their extensive theater background to help craft their scenes together. In addition, to learn about the struggles that a character like Darkman would endure, Neeson visited the Phoenix Society, an organization that helps those with severe disfigurements re-enter society. Couple this with Raimi's signature direction methods and cinematography, you get a very fast-paced, artistic, and sometimes humorous homage to the comic book and Universal monster genres. Fans of Raimi's will recognize certain camera angles and motifs in this film that he would go on to later use in future comic book films, especially his Spider-Man trilogy, such as the shot of Darkman in the back alley, or his establishing shot as Darkman wails away in his new lair. Both are very reminiscent of scenes from Spider-Man 2. And we see where he tried to mimic some of what Burton did in Batman, having Darkman on rooftops sitting between gargoyles, and even the similarities between the endings, both atop high buildings and the villain falling to his death. And in regards to mimicking Batman, one cannot forget to mention that Danny Elfman scored both Batman and Darkman, and in my opinion, Darkman is one of Elfman's most underrated efforts. But the future of Darkman would not be as bright as Batman's. Not achieving the same level of success after winning the box office its opening week, Darkman was relegated to direct-to-video for the sequel. With the exception of Larry Drake, no other cast member returned for the follow-up, and neither did Raimi. In fact, Darkman 2: The Return of Durant was Universal's first direct-to-video release in its history, and in its own way, the original Darkman has all but vanished into obscurity. But is it worth the watch? Yeah, it's a fun movie. Darkman is a fun movie to watch. There's not much to it. It is very straightforward, and at 90 minutes it's paced very quickly. It does harken back to Universal's early days in a magnificent way. A man in love falls into tragedy, disfigured, turned into a monster, looking for revenge, and ultimately in search of his lost humanity. A classic plotline that will always resonate on some level. And even though it was produced at the very inception of CGI technology, Raimi still managed to capture some great visuals. And the practical effects are vintage Sam Raimi. A little bloody, a little over the top at times, but we would not expect anything else from the creator of The Evil Dead. Finally, what I love about Darkman is that even though there were budget constraints, studio interference, creative differences, and post-production drama, you can tell that the cast and crew were trying to give us the best that they could with what resources they had. There is a romantic dedication to storytelling and craftsmanship embedded in Darkman, something I suspect grew out of the passion to entertain from a bunch of unknown actors and an independent-minded director that is still evident when watching the film back 35 years later. And that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have you seen Darkman? Or even heard of it? And if you have, what do you think of Sam Raimi's first comic book film? And if you want more movie commentary, click on the links for my retro movie review playlist and my general movie review playlist listed in the description. As well, if you did like this video, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe, comment, and share it out with your friends. It really helps out the channel each week. I thank you for watching, and remember, I'm still your reluctant gringo and from south of the border. Salute, and a huevo.